Hey guys, double wide 6 here, and up on the bench I have a Dolmar MS22C, and it's basically a commercial weed whacker or weed eater, and it has a Echo type engine on it, and it's super light. It's a lot lighter than my Echo that I have now, and I got this from my buddy Eric. It doesn't run at all, and it's been sitting in his garage for a while. So this video, we're gonna, as fast as possible, try and go through this thing, diagnose it, get it fixed up so it'll run. So this should work for anyone that's trying to fix a weed whacker that won't start because it's been sitting a while. So one of the first things you want to look at, if you have a weed whacker that wasn't yours previously, you want to make sure it has good compression. So I pulled on the rope, and I can tell that, you know, it takes a lot of force to pull it, and it seems like there's very good compression on this unit. The next thing I'm going to look at is the spark, so we'll quick do that. So I'm hooking up my spark tester here. You got to make sure the switch is on, and hopefully you can see that it's lighting up, showing I have good spark. Now, if your weed whacker ran last time you put it away, you don't have to worry about spark, and you really don't have to worry about compression. So we have spark, we have compression, so that means we have a fuel problem, and generally the problem is the carburetor is going to need to be cleaned. What I'm going to do is clean the carburetor, and we're going to change out the fuel lines, and we'll also change the fuel filter in the tank. I find it easier just to replace everything than screwing around trying to clean things off. So we're going to go through and clean it. Our fuel lines aren't even cracked, but they are a little bit stiff. First thing I'm going to do here is remove the air filter. So I'm going to take out this screw, and we'll pull off the air filter. So we can remove our filter cover. And if we take a look in here, there's a little bit of foam that needs to be cleaned out or replaced, and we have 2 Phillips head screws that we're going to remove, and that should loosen up our carburetor. So I've loosened up these screws, and we're going to carefully remove that, and now we have access to our carburetor, and you can see there are 2 fuel lines down here, so we're going to have to remove those. Okay, if we take a close look at the fuel tank, you can pull out your fuel cap. That thing will just pull out of there. And you'll notice that you have 2 lines going into this particular tank. Some tanks have 3. One allows fuel to go through it. The other one allows air to go through it. So you want to look in the tank and determine which one of these 2 lines has the fuel filter on it. And you need to keep track of which line is which. Sometimes what I do is I write it down on a piece of paper just to keep track. If you're not familiar with it, I think that's a good idea. This tank has a grommet, a rubber grommet that you can actually pop out. So I'm just taking a screwdriver and I'm carefully working this out of the tank. It takes a little bit of prying, and if this is damaged, you can order a new part. And what you can see here is one of these lines has the fuel filter, and you can see how gummed up and gooey that is. That's probably our problem. And the other line, like I said, is just for air, and they both go through this rubber grommet. So you just want to keep track of both these lines, and we're going to pull them off the carburetor. So you can just use a screwdriver, carefully slide them off like so. So don't just throw this thing away. Take it, use it to measure up your new fuel lines. If you don't have fuel lines or filters or this grommet, you can get all this stuff on Amazon. So on the bottom of the video, I'll put a link. That's what the new fuel line will look like once you have it set up. The tank is a little bit dirty. You definitely want to get rid of your old fuel. And what you can do is just put a little gas in there, swish it around, pour it out, and then let it set outside and let it dry out. The only thing left connected on the carburetor is the throttle cable. So you can maneuver the carburetor and basically remove the little thing that holds it on there, and you should be able to remove the carburetor from the unit after you do that. Okay, on this particular carburetor there's a little O-ring, and I don't want to hit this with any brake parts cleaner or carburetor cleaner, so I'm just going to remove that, and I'm going to clean off the carburetor with some compressed air. For this carburetor, like I said, I'm just trying to do a real quick repair of this one, and I don't have a gasket kit, so I'm just going to take this thing apart, inspect the gaskets. If I need new gaskets, I'll order new ones, and if not, we'll just try and put it back together and see if it works. This carburetor, I noticed, is actually a Walbro. A little tab here. I might be able, there we go, able to twist on to get that off. This is the pumping diaphragm, and as you can see, that gasket is nice and soft, so that should be a good one to reuse. I'm just taking a pick and I'm trying to very carefully work this gasket off. Alright, in here you can see there's a couple screws. This one loosens up the needle and seat. And you're going to notice I'm keeping my thumb on the spring because it's spring loaded and I don't want to lose it. And a magnetic screwdriver really helps to get that out. And what we can see here is our spring and our fulcrum. So we'll pop all that out. And right down here is our needle. So we'll get that out. You just want to make sure that the tip of this needle is in good shape and nice and clean. Okay, I already removed this screw. Basically it's for a jetway. So you're going to pull the screw out of this one, and then that little metal thing is going to come with it. And I'm just using a magnetic screwdriver, so that little plate holds down two jets. Okay, and I already had these out here. I took a pick and I pried them out. So there's one there and there's another one down in here. You want to make sure that these are clean because fuel needs to be able to go through that center hole. In fact, the top one might be a one-way valve. So here's the parts that came out of here. Basically the top one, which is this one, is a one-way check valve, and this one is a little jet that needs to be opened up, and it actually looks slightly clogged on this one. And once you get all those things removed, there's a gasket in there on the bottom of this one as well. I pull all that out, and then you can see the body of the carburetor. This will be clean, but I'm going to remove the other parts of the carburetor first. This is the primer side of the carburetor, so we're just going to carefully pull this off. And if we look in here, you can see everything in here looks nice and clear. So we're just going to carefully take apart the primer, and as you can see, there are some gaskets in here, and we just want to be careful and take them off without wrecking them. Pay attention to which way they're attached to the carburetor. So I'm trying to peel this gasket off, and I don't want to rip it because I don't have a replacement, and I'm just thinking I'm going to leave it on there because the carburetor looks really clean underneath there from what I can see. So I'm just going to let that go. So I've loosened up the throttle plate, and I'm going to very carefully just take that off. And I could see that there's a very small gasket here, and there's also a ball here that we don't want to lose. And I don't know if that ball will pop out or not. I'm going to take my pick and I'm going to carefully remove this gasket, and I'm going to see if that ball comes out. Now that's attached. Alright, I think we have everything apart. Now that I have everything removed from the carburetor body, I'm just going to take a little brake parts cleaner, lightly spray everything, and we're going to take compressed air and just blow it out. I don't want to I left that gasket on there, and I just don't want to hit it with that brake parts cleaner because it'll screw up that gasket. All the small parts are now cleaned. I'm just taking the gasket, and it needs to go in the right way, so I'm taking my pick and I'm placing it right in there the right direction. The top of this gasket is flat, and now I'm going to take the back end of a drill bit, now that I have it in the right spot, and we're just going to seat it in the hole, and it should bottom out nicely like that. So that's in there. Then we put in our jet, which I cleaned, and we're going to take our pick and flip that thing over. It's upside down. I'm going to flip that over and save a little time. So the jet's in there. Now we're going to, I better seat that. There we go. And then we have our valve. So there's a little check valve on top, and that has a rubber gasket on it. Okay, that's all seated nice. And then there was this little clip mechanism that goes on there like that to hold all that in place, and our very small screw goes in right in that hole. Now we're going to put our needle in. So to do that, first thing we're going to do is just get that spring in there, and I'm going to put a little bit of grease down here just to hold that spring in place. So a tiny bit of grease. Then we'll drop our spring, and that should stay. We're going to take our lever and our needle, put it all like that, and carefully lower it down into where it needs to go. And once we have it in there, we're going to take our screw and carefully secure that in place. You want to double check your needle's moving properly. So we push on this, and the back side of this lever should be even with this metal here, so it looks nice and level. Now we're going to put on our diaphragm. That looks good. And the last thing to do is put on our metal plate. Primer side looks pretty easy. You just line up your gaskets the way they're supposed to go, and you put your primer bulb right on there like that, and you screw your screws down. So now we're on to the throttle side. Basically, there's that real little gasket. I'm going to put that on here. There's a little ring that seats on. And I think this just drops on here just like this, and there's two screws that you secure. Last thing we have to do is pop our O-ring on there, and now what we're going to do is we're going to put in our fuel line. So here's our fuel assembly, and basically we're going to drop this guy right down the hole, and we're going to fit that rubber grommet in there like that. So as far as fuel lines go, the one with the fuel filter goes on the longer stem on the primer, so that one will pop right on there, and the air breather is going to go on this side. Now we're just going to put this carburetor kind of back together, so we'll put our throttle through there, and we should be able to pull this back slightly and set it in there. And we're going to run through our screws that hold the carburetor in place. So I cleaned off the tank, as you can see, and I cleaned out the inside. And if you have moisture in there, you can let it sit outside with the lid off if the sun's out, but today it's raining. So we went through, we did everything. So now what we're going to do is try and start it and see if this thing will run. Ooh, gotta turn it on. Well, it's a runner, but for whatever reason the head's not turning on it. So that looks like that's probably another video. Anyhow, I'm Double Wide 6, and I got a whole bunch of repair videos. You can check out my channel, and also on the bottom of this video is a link to some parts from Amazon for this particular model. Alright, thanks for watching. We'll see ya.